Join me as I sit down with one of boxing's most electrifying warriors, Shawn SHOWTIME Porter, a two-time welterweight world champion. Porter built his career on relentless pressure, speed, and sheer determination. From taking on the best in the division, Crawford, Spence, Thurman, to leaving a lasting impact both in and out of the ring, he cemented his legacy as one of the sport's toughest competitors. Now retired, but still deeply involved in boxing, Porter continues to bring his passion and expertise to the game. Let's get into it.
Showtime! Shawn Porter!
Hey boxing fans, I know we're usually in a boxing gym when we're doing these interviews, but a special guest causes for a difference of scenery, and I'm here with the one and only Mr. Shawn Porter. How are you?
There it is. Showtime, Shawn Porter. I'm doing good.
How are you finding London?
London's been fun. This is maybe 3 or 4 trips in my lifetime here now, and actually hoping to get over here a little bit more, hang out with you guys, and just share in this beautiful sport we call boxing.
Said we love having you here, but I've got to ask, what's your favourite thing about London?
To be honest with you, I take it when it comes, and what I mean by that is when people recognize me, whatever energy you give me, I give you that energy right back. I've had just the wildest things, and I've had the funnest things, and just the kind of list goes on. But being over here in London, people recognize me here a little different than they do back home, even.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, people recognize me. I remember we came here for Kell Brook versus Errol Spence, and my dad and I, we were in Sheffield, and we literally could not walk down the street. People were pulling over, getting out, taking pictures with us. That kind of stuff doesn't happen at home. So I mean, everybody likes to feel special and things of that nature, but I think where the sport of boxing is here in England, it's kind of a reminder that you've done something, unique. And you don't get that reminder very often enough, I guess, for the sake of words back home. But here, you get it every day.
Us boxing fans, we love to show our appreciation just because we love the sport so much. So talking a little bit about retirement, of course, retirement for any athlete must be really tricky. So what's the hardest part for you?
I make this sound light. There hasn't been a hard part for me. There just truly hasn't been. I think I was very prepared to retire. Most people don't even know this, but I was more prepared to retire a couple of years before I ended up doing it, So I think that...
Can I ask why that is?
I'll make the long story short. My dad, when I turned pro, I was 20 years old. And this is when we first signed our deal with our promotional company and all that kind of stuff. My dad said, I want you out of this by the time you're 30. And he said, boxing is something that our bodies aren't meant, we're not meant to take this kind of punishment. I want you to leave this sport with your health. I want you to leave this sport with money. And he said, I want you to leave this thing when you're 30. That's, of course, he didn't know how intricate the business of boxing can be. Obviously, nor did I. And what was supposed to be 30 became, I think, 34. And definitely was watching my clock those next 40 years. Yeah.
But then you've got it. And now looking back at your career, what's been like your most proudest moment?
All of them. Honestly, all of them. I don't look back on my career a lot. I get interviews. I get a lot of fans that just kind of rattle off the things that I've done. For me, myself, I don't look back at it. So when that question is proposed to me and I have the opportunity to kind of just take myself through, especially like the last maybe 4 or 5 years of my career, I'm just like, wow, I'm just grateful that pretty much every goal that I set for myself in the sport, I was able to check off. So,
what was one of those goals that you was able to check off and you thought, oh, I'm so glad I've done that?
Winning the WBC title. Yeah, that was one. Growing up in this sport, I did it, and for me, I love to compete. I love to win. I didn't love boxing specifically. I love sports, and I love winning trophies. I love winning medals, and then it became being able to travel and things like that. I love those things about the sport and about sports in general. So when I turned pro, I didn't really have a good understanding of the history of the sport. the biggest names out there, and that's pretty much it for me. And so I become an IBF champion. Didn't truly know what that meant. I actually looked up on my phone like who won the IBF title because it was a big deal to people and it wasn't a big deal to me. And it was like, okay, I saw some of the names on there. I'm like, wow, okay, I get it now, or at least I'm starting to get it. I wasn't mature enough yet, but a few years, a year after I lost the IBF title, I end up at the WBC convention. And I mean, they tell you the history. If you've never been to a WBC convention, every year they're gonna take you through the history of everything that's happened up until that year. And so I got a really good eye viewpoint of what a WBC champion was, pretty much what a world champion was, and it was like I gotta have this.
That's quite interesting because you've mentioned that you just like winning,
Yeah.
and so and you like sports in general. But
Yeah.
if it wasn't boxing, what other sport could you have seen yourself doing?
American football. Yeah. I picked up a basketball late. I truly do think if I had picked up basketball sooner in my life, I probably would have even boxed. I would have played basketball. I mean, I'm that good of an athlete. I'm a fast learner. Well, let me say I was because at 37, what I'm learning is that coordination and things of that nature they start to decline. So, but I really was. I was a really good athlete, and pretty much anything that I tried, I could do, and I'm still like that now. I pick up things very very quickly, retain information like that, and I swear like I didn't start playing basketball until I was a teenager. And I did that because everybody else was doing it, and it was like, all right, here's the next thing on the list. But I played football my whole life, and I boxed my whole life. And football, there's a different level of excitement for me for the sport of football. And I was like, I always wanted to play collegiate football, go to college and play ball. And I played on two really, really bad high school teams. And I was like, I'm not going to go to college and deal with, are these guys going as hard as I'm going? And I looked at my dad and I told him, I said, we know what we're going to do in the ring. I said, I know what you're going to do and you know what I'm going to do. And here we are. I think it was a good decision.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a great
Yeah.
decision looking back at everything that you've done. But you've fought some of the biggest names in boxing. So who's been like your toughest opponent?
When you talk about biggest names, they're the big names for a reason. They come, and everybody came with their own unique presence in the ring for the sake of words. And one that really jumps out to me is Danny Garcia because, for a long time we kind of looked at Danny as he was like the weakest link, I guess, for the sake of words. He wasn't as fast as most of us. He showed himself to be, powerful at 140, but he didn't show it at 47. And, but being in the ring with Danny, like I praise Danny, even though that fight isn't talked about as much as a fight with me and Keith. I mean, it's an instant classic. Fight with me and Arrow, instant classic. And and then I was taking Terrence, giving him a run for his money like pretty much no one had ever done before. The Danny Garcia fight isn't talked about that much, but it's kind of special to me because we developed a game plan for that fight. We followed the game plan to the T, and we thought that at some point we were going to kind of leave him behind. And the dude is stronger than I knew him to be. He's more courageous than I knew him to be. And, that's a special fight for me. And, that, of course, I won the WBC title as well. But I think when you feel like you know a guy, a fighter, you know who that guy is, and you know everything to do against him, you still have to get in the ring and test it. And that was a test just like all the rest.
Did you ever, just by listening to you, it sounded as if you may have not expected him to come in as he did. So do you think you I don't want to say underestimated him, but it's like you didn't expect it?
What you can do with some fighters in some fights, you can kind of gauge like, okay, they're gonna fall off around this or that round. Especially if if you really watch fighters, every fighter has a rhythm, every fighter has a pattern, every fighter will have a pattern. Test it if you want. 6th round may not perform as well as they did in the 5th round, or the 10th round, they may not perform as well as they did in the 9th round, but then you look at the 11th and 12th round, and they're the strongest rounds. Every fighter has a pattern. And the pattern that we thought we saw with Danny was he's going to be like this the whole way, right? And as long as we do what we're supposed to do, we're going to take it out of him, and he'll start to do that. And he didn't. And it was just, he's a true warrior. Yeah. for sure.
So you're known for being really aggressive and
Yeah.
assertive. So how did you develop that style?
The long story short, I've always been just that word right there. I've always been short. I've always been the small guy, and so it's kind of like I've always had to kind of reprove myself and go that extra mile. And in the amateurs, I had a hard time getting decisions over guys. It was like I always had to like do the extra, do so much more. And along the way, the one thing that I realized was that a lot of guys can't manage that kind of pressure, that kind of intensity, that kind of pace in a fight. And that's what set in for me. It was like realizing that I have the ability to throw 60, 70 punches around. Most guys want to throw 40 to 50 and amp it up a little bit, and they can't handle it. So it kind of became my pattern,
I love it. Do you ever miss it at all? Like just the aggressiveness, just the preparation?
I went to the fight last night. Shout out to Adam Azim. And when I sat down, I'm here because of the Undisputed game. So, of course, shout out to Ash Habib, one of the creators of the game. And he leaned over and asked me, he said, so I know you don't miss it, but when you get in this kind of atmosphere, then do you miss it? I said, it's funny you asked that because, yeah, I was like, it doesn't happen as much now. But when I first retired, 2 years into retirement, I mean, I literally was ringside, like calming myself down. Like, what are you thinking about? You're not coming back. Like, calm down. I'm good now, but yeah, I told him, especially when I see guys in the ring doing like the wrong things,
Yeah.
like it gets me going. Like I got to get in there and show them how it's done. But
It's so interesting that I'm even asking, do you miss like hitting somebody and getting hit?
no, hell no. That's what I don't miss.
Yeah.
And again, with being a podcaster and a broadcaster, I'm in the game so much that it's almost like I've never left. And I started sparring with some guys recently, and that's become a thing too. So I kind of feel like for all of the people that want to see me come back, maybe I'll just record some sparring sessions and sell that to y'all.
We'll be very happy with that. We would be. How did you mentally prepare for high stake fights like the Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight?
That part was, I gotta say that part. I hate to use the word easy, but I've always been a thinker. I've always been someone who meditates, and I've always been very visual. So I would play a fight in my head so much. I mean, I'd be at breakfast the morning of a fight, and you're sitting directly talking to me, and as I'm talking to you, I'm actually seeing my fight. I'm not even like there. So that's pretty much how I managed being ready mentally for fights. And of course, I've always taken care of the emotional aspect as well, and then the physical that was the hard work in the gym.
And we spoke a little bit earlier, and you was just like, that every fighter's got a rhythm.
Yeah.
So did you like premeditate their rhythm and what they would bring?
Yep. So I prided myself on making guys uncomfortable. That was kind of what I felt was my specialty. If I was going to, and I actually am training somebody right now, and when we get going with more and more fights, and we prepare and things like that, I'm gonna prepare my fighter for what he needs to do, what his opponent is gonna do, and then also, here's what we need to do to make your opponent uncomfortable. When you get uncomfortable, this is a fact of life. When you get uncomfortable, the first thing to go is your mental, because you start to scramble thoughts and you start to lose yourself in the midst of whatever it is going on. The same thing happens in the boxing ring. So, my pressure, my quick feet movements and my feints and things like that, it was to get you uncomfortable. It was to break up your rhythm and your routine and your patterns. And it was, of course, to set up my offense, and it was used as my defense as well. So, yeah.
I love that. So you mentioned a little bit about your father, and of course, you've trained with your father. So what was the dynamic like working with your father?
We had our good days and our bad days. It's family, that's how it is. I think my dad was always pushing me towards the goal. And I think the good thing about me is I always had in my mind what the goals were. And I think that he and I both, we weren't willing to allow anything to get in the way of us both achieving our goals. I think for my dad was primarily, I need you to be successful, and for me it was like, I want to get there, So we kind of always met each other in the middle somehow, some way.
I could imagine it's actually really great because your parent will always want the best for you,
Yeah.
and they will always push you,
Yeah.
and they will feel no way about talking to you maybe in a certain type
Yeah.
of way and pushing you a little bit harder.
Yeah, that's where it goes, and I've learned from that. I have a 7-year-old now, and a 4-year-old. He'll be 5 soon, and even though I pulled myself away from rushing to get those kids to be so successful, I mean, my kids are still in elementary school. We've got a long way to go, but one thing I've already kind of answered for myself, and I know that I'm gonna hold myself to, is I understand that at some point I won't be able to speak to my children in the manner that I've always spoken to them in. And the cool part about it is I kind of speak to them the way that I'm speaking to you now. I explain everything to them. I break everything down to them. And I have a lot of patience with them. And I think that was something that I wanted more of from my dad. So just.
How would you feel about your children maybe saying that they wanted to go down the boxing route?
In our household, it's not what we want. We, I believe, are doing what we should and could do to kind of steer our kids a different way. But should they choose to do that, should my son wake up one day, or sons wake up one day and feel like, I want to do it because daddy did it, I want to do it because it looks fun, I want to do it because I want to win a trophy, whatever that reason is, I'm always gonna be there for him, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be just boxing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. If you could have a rematch with anyone that you fought, none? Absolutely none.
People are like, man, we got robbed of the Keith Thurman rematch. I'm like, scratching my head, like, I ain't want to fight him again. We got robbed of the Errol Spence Jr. fight. We should have had a second one. I'm like, I don't want to fight him again. I guess I got to say Terrence Crawford, because I feel like, and also Kell Brook. I feel like those two fights, of all of the fights that I've had, those are the only two fights where I made mistakes. I knew what those mistakes were, and if I had an opportunity, I wouldn't do those mistakes again. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a point of a rematch. You just go back, assess, and then you come back to the ring.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think of the current state of boxing, especially in the welterweight division? I mean, especially with like Riyadh season. We've seen the hype with Riyadh season. Great cards, great fights.
I come from a different place. I grew up in the amateur system. I made my way through the amateur system. I fought at the Pan American Games, under 19 World Championships. I was 15 or 16 the first time I met Tyson Fury. I think we were 16. And he came over to the States, and then we saw him again at the under 19s. I've known all these guys for a long time. So when you ask me about the current state of boxing, I love it. And the one thing I wish we had more of is more presence in the amateur system. More how do you say it? Like a more visibility to the world for the amateurs, because some guys that fought at the Olympic Games, men and women that fought at the Olympic Games or in other, national tournaments, world tournaments and things like that, they're some of the best in the world, and you never know about them. That's one thing that I really do. I'm carrying on my shoulders now. How do I get the guy that wasn't able to sign with Top Rank or Golden Boy or Matchroom or this or that entity? How do I get that guy to get the looks, to get the fans that he needs, and get the money that he deserves and things like that? There's a lot of great talent in this world, and it's one of those. For every Michael Jordan, there's 100 of them that didn't make it. It's the same thing in the sport of boxing. So that's kind of where I'm at now with the podcast and things like that. I'm trying to expose the boxing that you don't always see, and get people to realize, like, hey, we got great boxing around this world damn near every day.
You mentioned a lot about potential. So is there any current boxers that you think that's caught your eye and you think, wow, they're incredible?
No one that I can name off the top, and no one that I really want to single out right now. But I will tell you this: I think that, especially with everything that's going on in Riyadh, there's going to be a shift in this sport, and it's going to be a beautiful shift that is going to last a lifetime. And a lot of guys and women that haven't had opportunities in the past or wouldn't have had those opportunities, they're going to start to come.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I love what Riyadh Season are doing. I think the cards that they're putting out, it's just incredible. And like the turnover for rematches, it's really beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Riyadh is, you know, they're being. It's a testament to what's needed in the sport. When you do have the funds to support what you're trying to do, you can put on amazing events, and that to me is the thing that needs to really become a focal point for the sport. Uh, Athletes look at it as, oh, I'm just a boxer. No, you're an entertainer. The NBA players know that they're entertainers. The NFL players know that they're entertainers. The FIFA guys, they all know that they're entertainers. Boxers, we just think that we just get in the ring, we box, we get our check, and we go home. And I think Riyadh again is going to add this shift where it becomes more of an event, and guys will see, like, you'll start to look up to wanting to be an entertainer more than just a phenomenal fighter.
What you said is actually really true, because I was talking to my brother about this, and I was just telling him that, like, we want to be entertained. Like, even the build up to the fight, as boxing fans, we want to be caught up in there. Like, oh my gosh, he said this, and like, did you see that the tension's building? And like, you kind of want to really like say, like, I can't wait till Saturday night what's going to happen in the ring, because of the build up, and we want to be entertained. Think about it, we're getting paid, like, we're paying to watch a fight, so we want to be entertained. I mean, it's great seeing somebody get hit, and we like a knockdown, but we want to see the action beforehand too.
And not every fighter is built the same. You know, you don't. Roy Jones was great at entertaining his way to the ring.
Yeah.
He was entertaining in the ring. You know, post fight and pre fight interviews and stuff like that were very, very fun to watch. You know. But then you got other guys like Mike Tyson, just got to show up, you know. So every fighter's not built the same, and you know, one thing I would hope to see change is promoters and managers start to build the event around the fighter, and you know, put the fighter in a better position than just, you know, go out there and you win. You know, that's one thing I saw last night at the arena. Somebody asked me what do I think about the energy in the room at the arena, and I said, well, listen, I said, this is not a world championship fight. I said, but look at this intro. They got smoke going, and they got the lasers, all that kind of stuff. I said, they're treating it like it's a bigger fight than it is.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, everybody needs that. All of the fighters deserve that, you know?
Yeah, I agree. What's something that you've learned in boxing, throughout your career in boxing, that you implement in your everyday life?
Man, I had someone tell me, I was telling them how everything was working out. So for those who think I'm coming back because you've seen me sparring and things like that, no, life is working out for me, y'all. So I ain't coming back. But I was talking to a mentor of mine, and I was just, you know, everything's working out. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. He said, you're not doing you're just using your transferable skills. Everything that you learn from boxing, you're just transferring that to your everyday life. And that's really what it is. You know, I have a level of commitment to things that I don't know if I would have if it weren't for boxing. You know, the ability to adjust. I think that's another main thing. You know, mentally knowing that if it doesn't work out, you got to stay calm, because you go around the corner, you figure out another way. So.
What's something about Mr. Showtime, Shawn Porter, that we probably don't know? I
was with Connor Ben just the other day. Man, I had a great time with that kid. We spent quite a few hours together, and while we were together, we had some really good intimate conversation. And I told him, he was asking me for advice, and I told him, I said, you know, I'm certified to do life coaching, and he was like, no, I didn't know that. I said, yeah, man. I said, I understand the psyche, I understand, you know, the human brain, where we are, where we're going, where we're trying to go, and you know, I understand how to make adjustments and things of that nature, you know. So I would say that's something that most people don't know about me. I have a extreme interest in psychology, and I've taken the approach to even get certified to do counseling.
That's amazing. So is that something you're going to look into doing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm doing it now.
Oh, I love that.
She didn't know I was counseling.
I didn't expect it.
You're going to watch it back and say, you're going to say, wow, that just changed me.
No, we could have a session after this. I'll be very happy. What's your favorite fight of all time?
My favorite fight of all time. My favorite fight of all time would have to be Marvelous Marvin Hagler versus Tommy the Hitman Hearns. Disclaimer: I am not a boxing historian, so I'm not someone that goes back and watches a lot of boxing. Quiet as it's kept, I watch more boxing now in the last 4 years of doing a podcast, and I've watched the first 30 years of my life, But that was a fight that when I was a kid, and I did see that fight, was, even though it was on the tape, it had a profound effect on me. You go back and you watch my fight with Terrence Crawford, and I had on war. Everything was war. And in my mind, I was going to come out, and you guys are going to go back and watch. I was going to come out just like Marvelous Marvin Hagler, my favorite fighter, throw a big hook, and it was just going to be on. And you guys can go back and watch that fight. I threw the big hook. I missed. I wasn't fully committed to it, because it was so out of what we do. You know what I mean? When I say we, the team, myself and my dad, we come out, we start with the jab, and we start, It was so much on the other side that I think I was apprehensive to do it. But I knew it was my last fight, and I wanted that Tommy Hearns, Marvelous Marvin Hagler kind of moment, kind of fight. And I feel like I got that kind of energy in my fights with Terrence Crawford. With Errol Spence and Keith Thurman. But I really wanted that with Terrence. And I came out through the hook, and it was like this weak-ass hook. And I was kind of I was kind of embarrassed about it and everything in the fight, and then we just the fight ended up being what it was. Yeah.
So you said you came out in war, and I actually like a lot of your outfits that you've came out in your fight. So what was the process? What's the thought process?
It simply was, and we did a tribute to Marvelous Marvin Hagler. On the inside, I have a commemorative bunch of pictures of Marvelous Marvin Hagler on the inside of my my robe, and I really I felt like this last one I have to go to war, and every fight's war, but I wanted the added energy, again, and that's another regret or mistake that I feel I made in that fight. Terrence Crawford came to the ring ready for war, and I thought that I was ready for war, but I wasn't there enough, Yeah.
Finally, my final question. Yeah. And I'm going to link it back because, you mentioned you're going to give some sessions for coaching. So what's your words to any boxers who might be in the early stages of their career, right now? Any words of wisdom that you would give to them?
Absolutely. Patience is key. The thing that I feel God did not give us a true understanding of is time. I think that if we knew exactly when things were going to happen and how they were going to happen, we wouldn't rely on him. We wouldn't pray to him. We wouldn't have the kind of faith. So I think that God, even though he's given us a lot of answers, there's some things he left in the gray. And patience is one of those things. People say, what do they say? Patience is a virtue, and, patience is key. And, I'm telling you to be patient right now. But you never truly know how long to wait. But what we do know is when you wait, and you wait long enough, and if you're doing the right things will happen. So, that's one thing I tell all fighters, because boxing is a process that you cannot rush. You can't always make things just happen. It takes time, and the ones who are patient and diligent and do the right things, even when the boxing world feels like it's sitting still, those are the ones that still come out on top.
Amazing. Thank you. I feel like I'm not even a boxer, but I feel like I could take a lot from that as well. Thank you so much for your time. It's been so beautiful speaking with you, and I've actually learned a lot, so thank you so much. It's a pleasure.